We're on Facebook and Twitter with our post show, continuing our discussion about COVID-19 and minority business owners fighting for economic survival. Erinn, I wanted to squeeze in that bit on the broadcast before I continue with you about some of the specifics you talked about in terms of how you are envisioning in-person care when people come back to the shop.
Yes. We're doing in-person care when they come in after this. And when we open, we've been looking online for thermometers, and I ordered one 2 weeks ago. Won't be here till probably not till June. So it's contact free, making sure we want to have that touchless sanitizer, when they come in. We want to be able to have masks in case they don't have any, and make sure the staff, I bought them masks already, so when we come back, as you can see, the salon is crazy because I have products everywhere. I spend more time at the salon putting together, bags and products and regimens. I email out regimens, which are super long and thorough on hair care. But we're going to make sure we take one client at a time, per stylist. So I don't think it's going to be that much different. We do one client at a time. It's just making sure we get that client out and get the next one in, because that's what it's going to be. Because if you have a small shop, which barbershops are small, and you got 4 chairs, let's say it's 6 feet apart, you're only getting barbers in there at a time. And if those 2 barbers are working, one person at a time, then you're going to have to alternate the days people can work. You're making less money. How can you pay that owner rent? How can that owner pay their rent? So I don't know how it's going to work for most, and that's going to be totally difficult. But I see us coming out of it and being okay.
Do you think that'll make the clients comfortable? Are those the ways you intend to make the clients comfortable about coming back in?
Yes, the clients and the team. The people I have, I really look out for them, first and foremost, and the clients. But yes, it will make them comfortable. It really will. Knowing that we're even cleaner than we already were, and that we're going to care for them and make sure everything's clean. We're going to clean up right after each client, which we did anyway. It's just making sure that they're safe, Especially we have a lot of elderly and a lot of younger people. So You want to make sure, and people have they already have asthma and whatnot. So it's scary. It's scary. Some people told me, they were like, my doctor said I can't come, so I'll get back to you when you all open, and hopefully I can come once the doctor says so.
So it might be about just articulating in a more transparent way exactly what you've been doing already, but just to remind them that these are the steps we have taken and will continue to take so that they can feel that. Cassandria, same to you. You've mentioned somewhat about changing already, thinking about who can come back, who can't in terms of your business. What other specifics do you see yourself taking going forward once your business is open in a real way?
Yeah, so we're thinking both about our customers and our employees. Like Erinn said, we're also investing in PPE equipment so that everyone feels safe at work.
That's personal protection equipment, so people know what that is. Yes.
So masks and coats, and it's going to be interesting because I already see it's adding, 3 to 5% cost to our expense line, and we're also switching to individualized packaged meals, which is more labor intensive. And so the cost to do business is going to go up. And we know that a lot of our customers are going to be in similar situations where they're cash strapped because they're just recovering from this pandemic. And so it's going to be interesting to see where the market goes and where supply meets demand, and how we can all work together as a society to realize that there is a new normal. It doesn't cost the same amount of money, to produce a rice bowl anymore. Mm-hmm. We have to incorporate the cost of keeping everyone safe, and whether it's our customers or our employees, and adding that to our budget line.
Segun, we ended the broadcast show with Erinn saying that, we got to have more, we got to have the resources. So for some businesses, some small businesses, and really some of the big ones that gobbled up what was supposed to go to small businesses, it's over for them. They're moving forward with doing whatever they did with that money. But for the 90 and 95% of owners of color that didn't get any of it, how do they go forward if they don't have the resources? And I'm not certain how far Congresswoman Presley and others are going to be in this next go-round of funding, because we already see some political reluctance on that end.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, BECMA has and Amplify and other advocates have been pushing on all government levels for some type of funding relief for our businesses. So, I agree with you that Congresswoman Presley's bill, is great in terms of the content, but, we're going to be working with her office to try to get it down the field to victory. But while we're doing that, we've also been pushing on the state level to set aside $150 million in grants and loans and technical assistance that would support businesses of color. We are continuing to support different cities and towns who are putting forward their own relief funds. Erinn mentioned what Cambridge is doing. The city of Boston just awarded 500 different businesses up to $2 million worth of grants and are going to be adding $5 million more to that fund. But BECMA itself, my communications director is going to be a little miffed at me for, talking about this before we say anything publicly. But, we ourselves are going to be launching our own grant fund by the end of the month. And we've been spending this time raising money for that, a few $100,000 so far, and want to make sure we're raising as much as possible in order to get some more relief to those who fell through the cracks, who weren't able to obtain this funding, and those who are going to need additional funding on top of what they receive. Again, Cassandria mentioned factoring in new budget line items. This is extremely important and very true. Folks just aren't going to have the same operating expenses as before. And so we want to make sure that we're getting some relief to our businesses even beyond this, because we know that any federal or state or local support that comes out, number one, it won't be enough. But if they're not geared specifically toward our community, it may happen all over again that we don't have access. So that's what we're putting together right now. And I will just add to that, for Cassandria's point about PPE, on Monday, we'll also be putting out an online marketplace to try to get Black and Latino businesses that have pivoted to making this material and this equipment onto one platform, so that small businesses out there can actually find this one source to purchase that equipment. Because right now it's all being donated or given to states or towns to get to our frontline workers, which is important. But our businesses that are considered essential need this equipment too. So we want to make sure that we are providing that resource to members as well.
This is not how you do business with BECMA, but I'm curious about what you think about the GoFundMe campaigns, some of which have been quite successful. So I'm thinking most recently of the Frugal Bookstore in Roxbury. They, asked for a certain amount of money, and within days, they actually made their goal. And this is not the way to do business, as I said, but it does demonstrate loyalty and understanding that they're providing a service that nobody else was, or few other people were, and that it was important to folks to keep it going. So what's your take on that, Segun?
So you're right. It demonstrates loyalty from the consumer base, but it also underscores the fact that that government and other entities are not doing enough to save our particular businesses. Betty mentioned earlier the role that minority businesses played in the Great Recession, and I'm going to add some numbers to that too, because daily are we crucified, but we are also this country's savior. Minority-owned businesses added 1.8 million jobs between 2007 and 2012 to the American economy, where white-owned businesses owned by male and female lost 1.6 million jobs. And so we actually helped to stabilize this country's economy. And this is true the further down you go on the state and local level. So for us, even though, yes, it's, we're happy to see that folks are supporting their local businesses. Not every business can do this, can get on this platform to receive that funding. So it's critically important that that government and the private sector are working together to save Black and brown businesses and to get them this needed capital, because it is us who are helping to stabilize this economy. And again, these businesses are relying on a community that already is facing its own wealth disparities to help fund these businesses. That's just not the way it should be. So, those efforts are really important. But again, we're pushing to make sure that the government and private sector folks are also meeting that demand.
Betty, I was curious about your take on the GoFundMe strategies that have really been the lifeline that the Paycheck Protection Plan was supposed to be for some people.
Right. I mean, they're creative. I will say that it's sort of by any means necessary at this point, right? So that your business can survive, so you can put money, on and food on the table. So I'm actually heartened to see some of the creativity that's coming out from these businesses. They are certainly shifting and pivoting, making decisions to either make a different product or to do things, remotely online, et cetera. And I think those are innovations that we need in our community. And those, while it's a struggle, they are actually helping to reshape how some of these businesses operate. But it's not a scalable thing, right? Mm-hmm. So what we need to focus on is how do we get the right kind of capital in the hands of our businesses. It's a combination, think of the great bailout. It's going to be a combination of grants, of very, very, low interest or forgivable loans. It's going to be investment dollars for technology and innovation, and deep technical assistance, right? That's at no cost for these businesses. And it's not a one-time thing. It's going to be over the course of several years. And that's what we have to think about. How do you pace it? Right? How do you manage right now? Because businesses and individuals they were in crisis before, they're in a greater crisis now. So how do we create a stability platform so that they can now be rebuild? And I will say, if you have to do GoFundMe, so be it. But I expect more. We should all expect more from our government, our private sector, to step up. And that's the work that we're doing as advocates, right? With BECMA, Amplify, a whole host of other organizations are again, coming together in ways we've never come together before, right? To advocate to save our businesses.
So, Betty, there are some banks, not, the JP Morgans and the Wells Fargo, that's where all the money got gobbled up because people with relationships went to those people, got first in line, first come, first serve. That was it for a lot of small businesses that didn't have those relationships. But now we're hearing from some smaller banks who have stepped up into the breach, including One United Bank. And One United Bank does not do this kind of loan. They don't do paycheck protection loans. But Terry Williams, the president and CEO, said, hey, we have to step up to try to at least be a conduit for people to get the access to the funding that, Betty, you're describing now. What is your sense of the number of banks coming online, the smaller ones, however small they may be, that can begin to make a dent in connecting folks with the capital that that they need?
Yeah, I mean, there's a number of smaller banks. I mean, there were existing SBA lenders because you have to be an approved SBA lender to provide the PPP loans. So, our biggest SBA lender in Massachusetts is Eastern Bank. But what we're started to see was smaller banks be approved to do these loans. They have the deep community relationships, right? So it makes sense and they can process quickly, which is what matters, right? These bigger banks, without naming any, took forever to process and in fact couldn't even process all the loans they had in round one. And it wasn't until later, maybe a week into round two, that they processed the backlog. So they were not serving our smaller, businesses. I think there's more banks that could step up, right? Also CDFIs. There's a chunk of money in the CARES Act that's allocated to CDFIs, CDCs, minority depository institutions to make PPP loans as well and other types of grants, but we need to create more capacity for them and provide them with more funding. We also saw the fintech companies now swoop in, right? So PayPal, Cabbage, et cetera, which again, take up a huge chunk and different experiences for different entrepreneurs. Some quickly got those loans and some had a terrible experience. So the inconsistency is what's, not right. So if we could, again, empower and give more funding to our local banks that we know have those community relationships with Black and brown businesses, we know they'll be able to reach them.
Okay, last question to Erinn and Cassandria. Are you optimistic? We haven't opened yet in Massachusetts for business, really, even though, Cassandria, you're already working. What do you see for the next 6 months for both of your situations? Cassandria, you can go first.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity sort of to recreate the society that we're in. And as a business to lean deeper into the issues that we're trying to solve. So one example is that we're coming up with a diabetes menu. And we're just trying to have faith. That's all we can do at this point, and work really hard and make sure that we continue to provide a product that helps people and serves people.
Okay. Erinn, last comment.
Last comment. Where do I see us in 6 months? Well, I do hope that we can, our clientele comes back. I'm sure that they will. They've been super supportive. And hopefully we can help them. If they want to stay home and take care of their hair and just come see us, sometimes we'll be able to service them, give them the products and the knowledge that they need. But I think we're going to be fine because everybody needs their hair done. You want to feel good.
Yeah.
Once you look good, you feel good. So I do know that people will be back in the salons, but it'll be at a slow rate. Everybody wants their hair done. I had a client, she had an appointment. I never canceled them because I want to go back in and look at who had it to call them when it's time. And she showed up outside the salon and called me like, hey, I'm out for my appointment. I'm like, you didn't watch the news? You know what I mean? So people are serious about wanting their hair. We're going to be fine. I think this industry will be fine. Just the smaller ones. If the stipulations, the regulations are 6 feet apart, it's going to be hard for smaller shops.
Okay.
Stay alive.
All right. Well, thank you all. Everybody stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.